It has been several years since the Village of Sugar Grove has done a State of the Village. So welcome to 2022's State of the Village. This is meant as a presentation to go over things that have happened in 2021, some highlights that might have happened back in 19 are in the presentation, and things that we're working on moving forward. So I apologize that we're all wearing our masks, but thank you for wearing them. This is what I look like, you know, for the camera, because we do have residents at home. This is really a question and answer can be done after the fact, but because this is going to be viewed by residents that maybe didn't attend the meeting, the objective is really to get through the presentation. We'll shut off our recording, and then if you want to stay and ask questions of myself, we also have another board member, Matt Bonney, in the room. If you want to ask him any questions as well, you can. Okay, so, oh yeah, I'm in charge. I forgot about that. First slide, your village board. So from left to right, we have Heidi Lindy, Jamie White, Ryan Walter, myself, Jennifer Conan, Matthew Bonney, Sean Herron, and Michael Shomas. That is your current village board. Some highlights about the village. The village is a non-home rule community. Our recent 2020 census population was 9278. We grew 281 folks in 10 years. So our last population was in fact done in 2010, and it was 8997. So a couple of things there I would say is obviously folks that had children that went off to college might not have come back. And so those people have grown and moved out of the village. We did have some senior apartment buildings that were built, one that's an over 55 and one that's over 62. So that did increase the population, but overall, 281 folks new to the Village of Sugar Grove. So we have some catching up to do. We have 30 full-time employees and 17 part-time employees. That's broken down. Our administration has 2 part-time and 1 full-time. Our police department has 12 part-time and 10 full-time. The 10 full-time are 3 sergeants, 6 patrol officers, and 1 chief of police. Our public works department has 13 full-time employees and 1 seasonal employee. Community development has 4 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. Our finance department has 2 full-time and 1 part-time employee. We're operating a general fund of approximately $5.6 million, and all of our funds are totaling $13.6 million. We have 10 funds that flow into that $13.6 million. Some village board initiatives. So the village board back in 2021 fiscal year, there was a recommendation that we increase our water rate. And the village board said, no, we don't think that we need to do that. So we held the rate steady that year. After COVID started in 2020, and we looked at water rates for the fiscal year of 2022, which is where we are today. That's what you're seeing come across your water bills, water and sewer. We decided that there was so much use in the village that our revenues were a lot higher than anticipated. So we actually did a water rate decrease. So we're always looking to try to save our residents money any which way we can. This was one of those instances where we were able to actually pass a 3% decrease on your water and sewer usage. And that's true savings in your pocket. Some other initiatives that the village board did last, say fall of 19? Fall of 2019, the village board discussed surplusing money out of TIF 1, which they were able to do. So out of TIF 1, which is the area that is closest to the airport, that TIF district, there was a $50,000 surplus declared, went back to all taxing bodies. And then this year about, I think it was our last meeting or 2 meetings ago, we had anticipated returning another $50,000 in a surplus out of TIF 1. We also decided to surplus $150,000 out of TIF 2. TIF 2, predominant user in that TIF district is, I would say, the senior apartment building over 55. So that's one of the biggest property tax revenue feeders into that TIF district. With that being said, the idea of the TIF district is there are projects that we're trying to spur development in, and We're not trying to hoard that money, obviously, for ourselves. It's not our money, it's everybody's money. And we want our community to thrive. So we try to utilize it if we can, if there's a reason and there's a project in place, that's what our goal is. In this case, there is not an imminent project. So with that being said, we're trying to get money back in the hands of the taxing bodies because we don't have a project that's ready to go. With the same side of all of that is that we don't anticipate using current dollars that are in a TIF district to fund someone right away. So the idea is if you come into a TIF district and you're developing in that TIF district and you might be asking for TIF dollars, you're going to get it on future development that you bring. So TIF money right now, one of the biggest things in TIF 1 was a sanitary sewer analysis and whether that sanitary sewer could be extended west toward the airport as well as Dugan. And the village board just found out that is while anything is possible, is rather expensive. So they're not going to move forward with that project right now. So hence declaring some surplus out of these TIFs. Also village board initiatives. So appointment of a town center committee. After I was elected in May, one of the things that I heard, and I think the community has heard over the years, is a central shopping area, dining, walkability, the arts, recreate, a place to gather. Those are all the things that are important to a community. And unfortunately in Sugar Grove, because of the state roads that we have, we're very dissected. And trying to create that is really what we have to do. There's not a natural fit where you're going to be able to have a town center. So we decided that we were going to create a town center committee, and it's made up of residents, some representatives from businesses, landowners, board members. There's 2 board members as part of the committee, to get together and discuss what are great attributes in a community, what you need in your town center, and how we market that and move it forward. So back in June, that committee was appointed, and they got to work, and everybody created vision boards. They took those vision boards, collaborated over all their different ideas and what was important to the community, and they brought it back and created this, I would say, 35-page presentation similar to this one. And it's really a way to communicate to a developer what the community would love to see here in Sugar Grove. So it's not a mass-produced marketing piece that you're going to see floating down the street or pick it up at the Village Hall, but it is a piece that we can use internally to communicate to a developer what we're looking for. So that was a big thing. That was an accomplishment that's moving forward, and that document has been created. So although they move quickly, it seems like they're kind of in a holding pattern as a committee, because now we have to take that and share that with developers that we're trying to entice to come to Sugar Grove. Also recently was appointed, we appointed the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. This was done last month. That committee, that's a CMAP grant that we received back in 2019. And with COVID starting, it was a delay game on when we were going to do this, when we were going to have this process start. We kept asking, the board kept asking, when is it going to start? And then finally it was in November, they're ready to start. But we didn't have a committee. We didn't want to appoint a committee to a project that we didn't know it was going to get going. So the comprehensive plan was last done in roughly 2005. So this is something that encompasses the entire village. It takes into account the areas, as the steering committee discusses it, the areas that have water and sewer, true areas that can be marketed and sold readily available today, I would say, but also future plans. What does it look like for, zoning near 88? What does it look like for zoning in the middle of town? What does that zoning map look like? So I'm anxious to get that steering committee going. I think that they have had communication recently in the last couple of weeks by email, so they anticipate a meeting hopefully late January, so that'll get going. And then there will be open meetings with the public to also participate. So it's not just the committee to figure it out, but there will be public meetings for folks to attend. Creating an economic development director position. The position I have taken is that the village of Sugar Grove over the years, especially in the boom of 2006, they were so inundated with developers that wanted to come here. and they were reacting to all of that business and handling it well and doing what they could. But then the crash happened. And so from 2007, really 2008, the crash of 2008, not much has happened in the village. And you need to proactively attract what you want. This village has been through different plan commission meetings with opposition to projects. And so instead of reacting to projects and opposing projects, really the goal is to try to go out and get the business that you want here in Sugar Grove and attract it and bring it to town. So this is a different approach, it's a proactive approach to utilize information from not only the plan commission and what comes out of those meetings, but feedback we get on a regular basis from residents and what they want to see here. So we're hoping, we've had the position posted, we're reposting it again. We're not just looking for anyone, we're looking for someone very specific that has done this job somewhere else and is experienced. This is not the place to learn. This is the place for someone to come with a lot of experience and bring it to Sugar Grove. So the board has agreed to create this position, and we're just, like I said, we're looking to hire now. So if you know of anybody that would be a great economic developer for Sugar Grove, please let them know to share their resume with Brent Eichelberger. Continuing with our village board initiatives. Improvements at Village Hall. So this year we had a surplus we're anticipating, the year doesn't close until April 30th, but we're anticipating a surplus with the village. And so how are we going to use those dollars? Some things that have gone by the wayside for a while that need to be done are improvements at Village Hall. Some of those improvements include carpet, both in the police department as well as the admin finance side of the building. Flooring in both sides. Painting, some new paint was done recently. Conference room table, if any of you have had a meeting in our conference room, it looks straight out of the 70s, and we want to look like we're keeping up with the times, and we're going to update some of our furniture. The new break room, table and chairs. The table and chairs that they're using right now came from one of the schools, donated from one of the schools, and our staff looks like they're sitting on, middle school chairs and table to have lunch. So we're going to update that. Our police officers. So our police officers, as you can imagine, when they're working in the village, they have their belts on. They need wider chairs. They need heavier chairs that can carry not only them, but all of the equipment that they're carrying. You don't know what you don't know. Take a tour through the police department sometime and you will see that our police officers have chairs with screws coming through, and they're not squeaky wheels, so if they don't complain about anything, we don't know about it as a board. You take a tour through there and it's time to update. So some money is being spent for our police department and their needs. Make them a little bit more comfortable while they're on the job. Some additional things that we need to do. So we approved hiring 2 police officers. One police officer, so the situation is we had a sergeant that retired this summer, and that created a sergeant vacancy. And so I'll get to it in a later slide. We were able to promote someone from within to fill that spot. So that created a patrol officer vacancy. And then also there's a patrol officer vacancy that's been open for 3 years. So the village board has approved hiring of both those folks. So 2 police officers to come on board. Also, we approved, these are some just additional purchases that have been long overdue. Laserfiche, document management system. So we're trying to take all of our paper records and create an electronic file for that. So readily available for us to share if we need to and get it to you, but also just for the sheer magnitude that paper takes up a lot of storage. And when you're trying to create room in a building, the best thing to do is go to Laserfiche. Village signage. Strangely enough, we have some signs in the village that do not have our current parking regulations on them, so those signs are going to be swapped out with current parking regulations. Also at our intersections, a lot of the state intersections, 4-way, if the power were to ever go out, we don't have a way to create that stop, if you will. You'd think it'd be natural for someone to stop. It's not necessarily. So all those intersections will have drop-down stop signs so the police officers can go if there is a power outage and put those stop signs down. So that'll be added. A big one, this is a big one. So the police parking lot, obviously it's shared with Village Hall. The police need a secure space, and we don't offer that currently. So what the village board has decided to do is tie into the public works area over here that we have with brick and fencing, bring it back to the building and secure the entire police parking area so that no one can get to any of our police cars. Planning of new Village Hall is part of the town center. So what we've realized is that the police department, this is really born from a need out of our police department. Our police department, like I said, asked for a tour, please go through it. They are squeezed into a facility that is way too small for them, and they're busting at the seams. And so how do we give them more space without building a $15 million police department? The best thing to do is to give them the entire building. So this entire municipal building that is divided right now between Village Hall and our police department, turn the entire building over to the police department. What does that mean for us? How do we get a new Village Hall? Where do we go? So there's been effort spent. Corrigan and Clark was gracious enough to do a space needs analysis for us, and we found out that roughly they started as they met with every department that would be moving into this building. So we anticipate admin and finance moving in, as well as community development, as well as board space and board room. So our meeting room today would be moved into this new Village Hall. They started the process, meeting with each department head to finalize, to figure out what they needed for space and future growth, what they anticipated, would it be 1 new employee, 2 new employees if we got to a certain level, if we got to 25,000 people, or what that looked like. The building actually started at 15,000 square feet. And I remember saying to them, that's a little too big. So let's figure out how we hone that down. And there's probably some overlap between departments and really tighten that up a little bit. So there was a few months spent of meetings back in the fall, and they came back with a final space needs analysis of roughly 10,000 square feet. So that's the building that we're hoping to build, roughly in size. So when we looked at other village property that we own, and that kind of leads me here to the next item, 140 and 160 right across the street. We own those buildings. 1/2 of one building, because the other side is leased, has roughly 3,000 square feet in it. So we can't possibly bring everything that we need to in 3,000 square feet when our space needs analysis says that we need 10. We should remind you that the Village Hall side of the things over there is almost 3,000 square feet. So it's just moving. It's like a temporary fix to be able to do the building for the police department. But instead of spending money once and then redoing it again and going somewhere else, the goal is really to spend money one time and build a building that works, get us out, and then retro this building for the police department. So that has moved me to marketing village property, 140 and 160 Municipal Drive. So like I said, we do own the property across the street. It was bought several years back with the intention to create incubator space. So business would come, they'd pay under market rates, they'd get their business going, and then they would move on in the village and move to a different location. It has worked for the space that's there. I think that there's 100% rental on the buildings that we have. Half of the building is undeveloped. So half of one building is undeveloped, and then we have the law firm that has the entire building over there. And then there's pads. So they're pad ready for construction, but the village isn't in the business of building buildings to rent out. We're not landlords, that's not the intention. So the village board recently, I would say unanimously decided that the best interest of the village is to sell those 2 properties. So we're hopeful to do that in the near future. It has to go through an appraisal process, and we'll figure out what the value is on those properties. But the board has decided to move out of the landlord business. The other thing it did is it created a burden on our public works department, and it will. We're the owner, we maintain the parking lots, the sidewalks, the snow plow. It just gives our staff something else to do when they need to be, you know, taking care of the roads and different things throughout the village. So the biggest reason to get rid of that. Developing a business facade program. This is something I wanted to do a year and a half ago, and brought it back to the board, and without a true plan of how we're going to do it, it got kind of pushed to the side. Well, we're back, brought it up to the village board recently, and the village board has supported it. And so what we're trying to do is create this facade program for maybe the older section of town as it exists. So I would say Cross Street, Main Street, in and around Old Second Bank and the post office. The goal is really, when you design a facade program, it improves the economic vitality of an area. Better aesthetics increase property values, improve the marketability of space within the building, and draws business and residents to the area. So it's to do just that. It's to say that we have an area that maybe the business owner doesn't want to spend money doing their facade, but given maybe a partnership on a 50-50, whatever it's crafted to be, we don't know what the cap will be yet, but creating that to say, hey, if I spend $10,000 and I get a grant program through this facade for another $10,000 match, I can invest $20,000 into my property, improve the beautification of the facade, attracts new business to town. It says that this is our village and it's on the up and up. They're doing great things, they're turning old things new again, and I want to invest my dollars there. So that's the goal of the facade program. We'll see how it works. There's some fleshing out to do, but it'll likely hit in the budget of from May until April. So it'd be our 22-23 budget year. One of the other things that Allison and I have gone back and forth, and I think it fell off the slide again, is our village board members have been asked to be liaisons with different either taxing bodies or agencies. So right now we have liaisons with the Fire Protection District, the Township, the Library, the Park District, the schools, Caneland Schools, the Aurora Area Convention Bureau, and we have a board member that regularly attends the Kane County Forest Protection District board meetings. Okay. I'm sorry, with this mask, I'm like, sorry, I just take a quick breath before I hyperventilate and pass out back here. All right, moving on. More village board initiatives. So we hosted Food Truck Fridays this year. We had 2 events. We had one in August and one in September. And they were really meant to be, like, food trucks are a really hot thing in a lot of communities. There's lots of events that happen, and people like them. It's kind of the opportunity to say, well, I want Mexican, but my child wants a hamburger, and so-and-so wants something, and you can all go to the same event, and everybody can get dinner, and you're not driving all over town or going to one restaurant where someone's going to be unhappy. It really was meant to be a community event that, in light of the fact that we haven't been able to have the corn boil the last couple of years, it was something offered in the community that everybody could come and gather and have a great time. And as you can see from this photo, they did that. Public Works, working in partnership with the Park District, was able to borrow some picnic tables, and they put them out at the green space at Village Hall, and the food trucks came and the folks had a great time. It was just a family affair, and then we had a lot of traffic from people even driving down 30 that were hoping it was open and not private party, but it was open, and they stopped and they grabbed dinner, but it worked out. It worked out. So we're hoping to do a couple of those in the spring as well. The village board also continues to support the Groovin' in the Grove concerts. So there's 3 concerts. There were 3 concerts this past season. There will be 3 concerts next season. One of the things that we talked about in that meeting was that the idea that the food trucks were so successful, and the Groovin' in the Grove concerts do have food trucks. It was just that, do we marry those 2 events together? Do we keep them separate? And so they did decide that the best interest would be to keep them as separate events. But they were able to get one of the trucks that came to our event and use it for all 3 of the Groovin' in the Grove concerts. So sometimes they have food trucks as well, but now they've locked in, I believe it's the Fiesta Taco truck for all 3 of the Groovin' in the Grove concerts. And to bear in mind, as I go back just for a second to talk about that town center plan, the idea is that in a town center, you have a clamshell You have a stage, something for the arts. It's a great place to eventually have our Groovin' in the Grove concerts versus at the side of the library. This has been great for a temporary location, but something where you can accommodate more people, have that stage. That would be really the goal for the community moving forward. Okay. COVID-19 response, as we're all still wearing masks, and it felt for a glimmer of hope this past summer that maybe it was gonna come to an end, and here it is with a new variant. Some things that the village did in response to COVID-19. So it was important that the village obviously maintain its service levels across all departments, and they were able to do that. The village provided economic relief at the start of 2020 when all this happened and people were losing, not necessarily losing their jobs right away, but, put on hold, didn't know what was happening. Some folks couldn't pay their electric bill. They couldn't pay their water and sewer, their utility bill from the village. The village didn't shut off any water. There were no penalties for 6 months. Still to this day, we continue to work with residents to address payment hardship. So that was important that no one be affected negatively because of this virus. Up in community development. So if you were ever to try to file and get a permit in the village and you wanted to pay by credit card, there was a credit card fee for doing so. Most people pay by check when they get a permit. In this case, because we wanted to go remote, because we didn't want contact with folks, they went online and they waived that fee. So anyone who was acquiring a permit with the village could do it on their credit card just so that there was no contact, and those fees were waived. Implemented staff procedures to provide employee safety. This was a big one, and it's funny, you felt like we were getting a little bit better, and now we're kind of back to where we were. This is a perfect example. So at the start of COVID, it was important that we had staff not have cross-contamination where it could wipe out, like, say, Public Works. So Public Works went to all of their employees were driving one person in a vehicle. And as far as Village Hall is concerned, and even community development dealing with the public, it was, in the vestibule, one person, they would have no contact besides the little window, so there was a lot of glass partition there, antibacterial, of course, but taking our staff not from all hands on deck in the building, but the ability to work from home. So we had some employees, just so that the whole staff wasn't in the building at the same time, we had some employees that work from home. And that has proven, still to this day, to work well. So we're still doing that. We have employees that will come in certain days and then the others will come in, just so that we're limiting contact with those folks. And of course, if any village employee has an office, they're typically in their office with the door closed. So those folks have the ability to take a mask off in that space. But we do have a lot of cubicle space within the village, not only in Village Hall, but in Public Works and community development. So those folks are wearing their face masks in the office. Okay. Administration. So we're going to go through our departments and see what's going on in each department. In our administration department, some of these things will go back to 2019. But we negotiated new boundary agreements with the village of Caneville. So that was approved in 2019. We have a recent approval through the village of Sugar Grove for a boundary line with Big Rock. And I was told, what's today, Tuesday, that it should be on their agenda tomorrow. So we anticipate that says pending because it's been approved through the village. They need to approve it on their end, and then it'll get recorded. We renewed some boundary agreements. We renewed on a boundary agreement with the city of Plano in 2020. It was recorded in 2021. We, just as a side note, we have 9 borders with Sugar Grove. For an area out here in the country, so to speak, we have 9 separate towns, cities, municipalities that border along with us. So I'll share those with you. We have the city of Plano, Yorkville, Aurora, North Aurora, Montgomery, Batavia, Caneville, Big Rock, and Elburn. Of those 9 borders, we will have secured 8 borders, and we will have 1 border open, which is on the north side with Elburn. Borders are important. Borders allow us to determine what our planning district is. They know what theirs is, we know what ours is, we stay within those parameters, we plan within those parameters. I always say boundary lines are like fences. They make great neighbors. There's no argument. It is what it is. You mutually agree on a line, and that's what it is. And it's in place for 20 years. So when we talk about renewing a boundary agreement, some you don't have to wait the 20 years. You can renew. Like we renewed North Aurora and Batavia at the same time in 2019 because Batavia and North Aurora were trying to do a boundary line agreement. So it kind of brought all three of us together to mutually come up with a line that affected Sugar Grove at the same time it affected them, mutually between Batavia and North Aurora. The village, thank goodness for the village, negotiated removal of the Hannaford Farm topsoil pile. So in Hannaford Farm, since 2005, well, first home went up in 2005, so I anticipate that pile got there in somewhere between 2003, 2004, as they were laying those roads. There's two stockpiles. One stockpile in the center of the subdivision, like I said, has been there that long, so it's, what is that? 2005, almost 16 years later, that pile sat there with really no end in sight of this giant dirt pile that was growing trees, and it was a nuisance. And I can't even remember the number, and I don't know if Michelle Piotrowski's here, she can tell me how much excess dirt there was in that stockpile. Do you know off the top of your head? It was a lot. It was significant. I remember it being thousands, right? How does it equate to a semi? Hundreds of semis of extra dirt. And so where does that dirt go when the subdivision is finished? It doesn't. So at this point it needed to be negotiated so it wasn't landlocked, so you didn't have homes all the way around that dirt pile with no way out. So the village was extremely helpful to the residents over there in getting that dirt pile removed. The dirt pile was, I think they were anticipating it be gone in a year and a half maybe, and it was done in one season. And I think in the course of when they started and when they finished, it might have been 3 or 4 months. It was very quick. So that was great. I mean, it didn't cost the village anything to have them come in and do it. They had an end user come in and he sold the dirt off, but that was part of the process. Take the dirt, get it out of here. There's still a whole separate dirt pile that can be used for topsoil as that subdivision gets finished. So there's plenty of dirt still left. Our finance department. So we received a Green Power Community designation. What does that mean? Why did I skip them? 5% of our energy is supplied to the village residents in the form of green energy from wind, renewable certificates, energy certificates. And as we get that designation for having a percentage of our energy through green power, we got a civic contribution from the energy company for $24,000 annually. And I'll talk about it in a farther slide a little bit down in Public Works, but the village has decided and did decide to use that $24,000 toward replacement of streetlights and converting them to LED. We held a holiday coloring contest for the last 2 years, and this is credited to the finance department and their idea in light of COVID. And last year, 2020, being kind of the doom and gloom year, and kids couldn't, they were all home or doing their remote learning, they created a coloring contest. So the coloring contest, there were different age brackets, 5 and under, 6 to 9, 10 to 12. Winners in each category received a $25 gift certificate to Culver's, and runners-up, which are all other participants, received a $10 gift card just for coloring a beautiful picture at the holiday time. And they had about 20 kids that participated in 2020 and 13 kids that participated in 2021. So all in all, something fun to do that the village created. The finance department created a fun little activity and awarded them something for their efforts. We were awarded the CAFR Budget Award and the GFOA recognition. Oh, so much in finance, right? So the CAFR Award is an award that is given during audit time. So it really has to do with the keeping of the finances and financial statements. The audit gets into more detail, and so that's what the CAFR Award is. The GFOA Recognition Award is a budget award. So in the way we put our budget together, that we've been recognized. Let's see, my details here. So in 2020, April of 2020 was the 21st year in a row of receiving this award. And the village anticipates receiving the CAFR award. That was the CAFR award received in the 21st year. And they anticipate receiving that award again in this year. That audit was closed in this past October. So we should be getting that award soon for the 22nd year in a row. The GFOA Budget Award for fiscal year ending in 2021 was the 15th year in a row receiving that award. And both awards are given by the Government Finance Officers Association. So they're both issued through that agency. That also goes to transparency, right? So the more open you are with your budget, it's not only for keeping everybody accountable and keeping great detail, but it also shows everybody our books are open and we're very transparent. And the Finance Department is doing a phenomenal job. Police Department. So the Police Department has partnered with the Sugar Grove Fire Protection District to implement NIXL, Community Alert System. That was done back in November of 2020. Some highlights from the NIXL. So what is NIXL? NIXL is it's an alert system, right? So if any of you are part of the school system, which I don't know if you are, if you have children in the school system, we get a text, you'll get a text from the school, and then you'll also get a notification as an email. It's almost like an alert to something else. In this case, you can be alerted as to road closures, weather, incidents that are happening, tornadoes, that kind of thing. So some alerts that went out. So the first alert went out in December of 2020, and it was alerting of a closure of 47 in Galena due to an ongoing traffic investigation. A separate time, we had a child, a special needs child, that went missing. And so a NIXL alert was sent out, and that child was found rather quickly. Also in partnership with the county and a canine dog, so that helps. But that alert did go out, and then it also spurred Facebook notifications for folks to then put it on Facebook to also try to help. In June of 21, there was a tornado warning that went out via NIXL. And in August of 2021, there was the very large Prairie water main break that went out that happened to close our schools down at the same time, so that was significant. What you should know about NIXL is nothing's perfect. It's not a perfect system. Before NIXL, we alerted residents through email and Facebook postings. So if you weren't checking your Facebook or you didn't have a notification when you got something from the village, you might not have known about it. This system is designed to create an alert to you. You have to sign up for it, so it's part of that is a partnership to get the notification. But two, it's also a human response. So in order to send out a NIXL alert, we have staff trained, fire protection is trained to type up the alert and send that out. So we did have a situation recently where a NIXL alert did not go out. It was a rather tragic accident on New Year's Eve. I'm sure you've heard about it in the community. A NIXL alert didn't go out. All hands were on deck. We had all of our first responders were there, police, fire protection district. Happened to be a holiday, and so like I said, nothing's perfect. It's unfortunate that we weren't able to communicate the road closure. They were extremely busy, and there happened to be loss of life that day, so that's unfortunate. But the alert itself is worthy. So if you haven't signed up for it, please sign up for it. It makes a difference. As of January, this is 22. As of January 21.
Oh, no, 22.
Of 22, of January 22, so recently, we had 1,400 text subscribers. We had 3,200 voice subscribers, and we had 770 email subscribers. Like I said, you're not going to get the alert if you don't sign up, but it is worthy to sign up and get those alerts so you know what's happening in your community. Also, the police department hosted multiple prescription drug take-back events. So they hosted a semi-annual DEA National Prescription Drug Take-Back event in April of 2021, October of 20 and 21. State Representative Jeff Kiker and Keith Wheeler partnered with Sugar Grove Police Department to host a prescription drug collection on September 23rd, this past September of 2021. And in November of 2021, the department dropped off over 337 pounds of product to the DEA for destruction. The amount collected since the April 2021 DE event included the September, October events, as well as the drop box at Village Hall. So for any residents that don't even know that we do that, please be aware that there is a drop box at Village Hall Police Department in the vestibule, and you can just take those prescription drugs and pop them in the box, and that way you have a safe way of discarding old medications that have expired or no longer needed. So I talked about earlier that we were looking for 2 patrol officers. 1 patrol officer is needed because Officer Ramon Alcaraz was promoted to sergeant. That created a vacancy from a patrol officer standpoint. And then again, just as a reminder, we have that other position that's still open, that's been vacant for about 3 years. So Ramon is a great officer. He actually is a Sugar Grove Township resident. If you haven't run into him, super kind guy. I think you'll enjoy meeting him. And we're very excited that he has been promoted and is continuing his career here in Sugar Grove. Just a cute picture of him and his family as he's being sworn in. Okay, the police department. So we are a finalist for a grant for the purchase of mandated body cameras. I'm sure you are aware or have heard that state legislation was passed that all uniformed officers are required to wear body cameras by January 1st of 2025. So what does that mean for us and a lot of other smaller municipalities? It means that, yes, we care about the safety of residents, and not only our residents, but also our officers. Those body cameras will help, but it also creates a large burden. It's a financial expense, very large financial expense to our budget. So one of the things that we did was proactively look into a grant, and there is a grant out there that we are now in the award phase. The village received notification on December 29th of 2021 that we've been moved to the award phase of the process out of 1,000 applicants. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we are awarded this grant. The way it was structured is we need a body camera for everyone, whether you're a full-time officer or a part-time officer. If for whatever reason everyone were to get called into the village, we need to ensure that we have cameras for everyone. Every camera is $2,000, so that's a $44,000 proposition with just the cameras, not even the storage of the footage, right? So there's that component as well. Of this grant, the grant is on a 50-50 split. So if we're awarded this grant, it's a $22,000 grant, and then the village will pick up the other 50%, so $22,000, to get those body cameras. We're always looking for grants. I mean, I have to give a lot of credit to our staff. Every opportunity there is for a grant, you will see as we go through Public Works, they're looking for them, they're trying to get them, and this is one of those opportunities. So we're hopeful that we receive that. We do anticipate, though, that over the course of 3 years, it's going to cost the village somewhere between $150,000 and $160,000 to maintain the footage for the body cameras. So that is something that we will budget for as we move forward. Community development. Back in 2020, back in 2020, the village put a cap on our village permit fees. So the village permit fee for a residential home is capped at $17,850. That is competitive within the marketplace. We wanted to make sure that we weren't higher than everyone else and we weren't lower than everyone else, but we're at a competitive price to spur development in Sugar Grove. That cap continues today. So it was set in 2020, and like I said, that's moving forward, so it's still capped. We welcomed Ryan Homes this year to Settlers Ridge. They purchased 65 lots and they started construction. They built a spec home, and they were anticipating that they were going to sell about 30 homes a year. So they expect to be in Settlers Ridge roughly 2.5 to 3 years most, getting through the lots that they own there. So we're grateful for that. And as we go back to the first slide where we grew by 280 folks, it's really important to get some residential growth in the community. It helps with our economy in general. We get per capita dollars, it goes to our budget, but also they keep those businesses going. And so we need more businesses, we need more residents. We're working on Prairie Grove Commons. So this is one that just is like a thorn in your side because it never seems to get to the end. But anyway, for any of you that noticed the zoning change signs along 47 and Galena Road, so on the west side on approach to the airport, there were zoning signs up there this summer. This is a developer who owns the property, who's looking to develop this particular property in phases. And right now working on the corner of Galena and 47. So in that, of their property, it would be their northeast corner of their property, and get that going. So that was looking at 3 quick service restaurants as well as a gas station. Part of that project though is the extension of Division goes into their property. So Division behind Walgreens would then extend into this property. And then there would be another road that cuts into 47. So anytime you do a cut into 47, you need IDOT approval. That's part of the hiccup that we're experiencing, is getting IDOT approval to create access, right in, right out access on 47 into this property. That not only helps that one corner, but also as they build out the rest of that property, it's going to be important that they have right in, right out access. So if someone wants to go on the south side of that property or deeper into the property, that they don't have to turn onto Galena, onto Division, and then into whatever establishment might be there. So it's an easier access point. What that also did was create, just on paper, the engineers have found that you have a problem now once you create that right in, right out access, that now you're too close to the on-ramp of 30. So the on-ramp has to move. Not only that, but sanitary sewer, getting them sanitary sewer has been a challenge. Just from a capacity standpoint, they could go north, but they would eat up capacity on the northbound, and we have Division that still needs to develop, the backside of Division behind Aldi. So the best route for them, long-term for the village and for the additional use on their property, is to go under 47 and go eastbound. So they have to take their sanitary sewer line under 47 through that first property that you see on the east into the second property. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of engineering time spent on this project. And there are end users that that have their plans in with the village, and they constantly asking, what's going on? When is this going to get going? So it's just what I've learned in this government is everything takes a long time. So we're hopeful though, 2022 will be the year that you'll actually see some dirt being moved in that area. We also contracted with Nextsite for economic development recruitment. So Nextsite was a contract that we signed. It was a 3-year contract. We pay $15,000 a year for that contract. And what do they do? So Nextsite is a partnership with, I believe it's Nicor Gas. And their job is really to recruit national and regional retail brands to the village. And so the gentleman that we're working closely with is out of Birmingham, Alabama. He's been up here, he attends different conferences, he's been to the IML, he's come to the village multiple times. And what he's really doing is creating, he's working for the village and trying to talk to developers and businesses outside of the village and bring them here. But also he's been able to give us invaluable data. And so what we've learned is the olden days where everybody would drop a pin on Sugar Grove and say, this is your area, right? This is your demographic area, your shopping pool, if you will, your market area. It's different. And when he put our market area on a screen and we saw it, you gotta love technology. Everyone is tracked through your apps, what you use, whether you're at Jewel and you're using the Jewel app. And so they're able to track people. We know where people are coming from. We know where they're going. We know if you're shopping at the Jewel, we dropped a pin on Jewel and said, okay, where are the shoppers going, coming and going, some in different times of day. There was a whole chart on, peak hours for the Jewel. I mean, that's invaluable information. I'm sure they know that already on their own business, but it's invaluable information for not only their business, but any other business in Sugar Grove that wants that kind of information. We did share this with Nick's Furniture as an example. As we went through the information that he provided, we found that there were many gaps. There's a gap analysis across many different industries, and one of those was furniture, home furnishings. So we approached Nick's Furniture and said, hey, can we present this to you? And you can see, validate it for us, what you know about your business and what you're tracking already. And he found it to be spot on. So a lot of he has customers that come here from Rochelle. And I think if you were to do the old traditional way of dropping a pin on and putting your circle around and say, these are the folks that I can market to, It totally changes that. If you're going to spend marketing dollars for your business, you want to market it to somebody that you know is coming to your business. It might not be a Sugar Grove resident. In this case it is, but it's beyond. What we found on the Jewel is, although we have a population of now 9278, the Jewel population shopping district is about 62,000 folks based on those traffic patterns and who's actually coming to our Jewel. So when they take that to another business and user developer, they're saying, listen, this one grocery store is producing traffic of 62,000 people. And that's valuable information when you're trying to get more business in your town. So that is helpful. Again, when I tell you we're hiring or looking to hire an economic developer, we can't do one and not the other. This is valuable information. He's working outside of the village, but we need that person in-house. And this will be why. So the next slide. New businesses that came to Sugar Grove. We'll go through these. We welcomed Dirty Paws, Lucky Dog Grooming, Crosstown Financial Advisors, Metronet, The Soup, Betty Klein, who is an ophthalmologist, Hair Candy, also The Grove Firewood and Mulch, Rosewood Farm, Midway Industrial Inc., Mars Industrial LLC, Paramount Auto Detail, Accurate Testing Solutions. The reason I say it's so important on my previous comment about that local business is a lot of these owners are residents or township residents. So we have our national recruiter who's trying to bring business here, but where are we really thriving in Sugar Grove? We're thriving from our own residents, opening businesses here, staying here and keeping it local. That's what the economic developer will be able to do for us, is their job is really to target. I love the restaurant in Geneva, and they have 3 other locations in the Chicagoland area. How do we get them to come to Sugar Grove? Sharing the information that we were able to capture through Nextsite, as well as our economic developer going out and having those conversations to present that information, because the gentleman from Birmingham isn't going to find the Geneva restaurant and bring him to Sugar Grove. That's not what he's hired to do. This is a big one too. We've got some big highlights on this. Prairie Point Assisted Living Facility is open for business. They opened on October 21st after 5 years of construction. So for all those residents always saying, when is this going to open? When is it going to open? It finally opened. And they went through several hurdles. Just to name a few, is they had their general contractor quit. They had to get a new one. They had so many change orders. There was a lot of inspections that had to be done, redone, fixed. It took a long time, but they are open. And what's exciting about it is for families that live here whose parents might be in an assisted living somewhere else, and you're trying to get them closer to you. It's nice if you live in Sugar Grove that you could have an option for mom or dad that currently is 40 minutes away. Or if you're a Sugar Grove resident and you're in need in this type of facility and you love your community and you don't want to leave, now you have an option. You don't have to move out of Sugar Grove as you age if this becomes a need for you. So right now they have 25 residents. I think part of that was, as we're seeing throughout COVID, is a lot of staffing issues. So folks are experiencing staffing issues. They're no different. They're going to take on the residents that they feel like they can manage. And so right now they're up to 25. I don't know what their staffing issues are or what their current staffing needs may be, but at the moment they do have 25 residents. Deep Coat is a manufacturing company that was in a rented. They had a lease up on Heartland Drive, right? Yes, they were on Heartland. And they built a roughly 80,000 square foot new building for themselves. So we appreciate them not only being in Sugar Grove originally with their business, but then saying, hey, we want to do our own facility and not lease. And they chose to keep their business here in Sugar Grove. So we're extremely grateful to them. It's a beautiful building if you haven't been by, right on the corner of Wheeler and Heartland Drive. Coming up this year, so the village board approved this recently. So the Sugar Grove Center Lot 17. It is in the end of the strip mall at the Jewel Shopping Plaza, right in front of what would be Chesterbrook Academy. It sits in the back. There's a I don't know if you can see it now, but usually a green patch of grass. This building has been approved. So you can see from the drawing, it looks like 6 units will be going in here. We were told one of them is Bubba Coo Burrito. Half of the staff pronounces that differently every time we say it, but Bubba Coo Burrito. The subway. So the subway will move into this building because the subway owner that is currently in the Jewel Strip Mall is the owner of this new building. So again, you talk about a business owner who is obviously appreciates what he's got in Sugar Grove and how much business he's doing, and he's making an investment in Sugar Grove. So it's another example of someone growing into the community. And he's put up a building with 6, it looks like 6, but I think right now they have plans for 4, because the Bubba Coo Burrito, for example, might need more space, I don't know. But the space should allow for 6. Oh, and a Cold Stone Creamery. I think those were the highlights that they did announce, that the Cold Stone Creamery is one, Bubba Coo Burrito is another, and the subway will move in. So I don't know who the 4th user is that they have right now, and whether it'll be 4 or 6 in this strip center. That's coming. We anticipate seeing plans, preliminary plans from them in February. I think they want to break ground this spring. So if you're going to hopefully it won't be in the way and there will be no construction issues if you're getting to the grocery store, but that'll be underway. Development opportunities. So there's lots of development opportunities. These are to name a few of conversations that have been had. So Crown Community Development, always at the forefront of everyone's discussion, is what's going on at 8847. Strangely enough, they have, not only does the village have new leadership, but their Crown has new leadership. So I met with Terry, who is their vice president. Gosh, what is her full title? But she's like, I'm going to leave it at vice president for a moment. And some of her staff back in November, and that was a nice introductory meeting. At the end of the day, we're hopeful that Crown has a project that works for Sugar Grove and something that works for them financially to develop the interchange to produce some much needed revenue. So our doors are always open to Crown. Open lines of communication are there. If and when they decide to bring a plan back, we're here willing to help and work with them. Mr. Wiedner's property, these are the way we refer to them, right? So Wiedner's property is the property on approach to the airport, but on Municipal and Galena. So earlier I was talking about the frontage piece on 47. Now Mr. Wiedner's property is that back piece, right as you go out. It's right on the northeast corner of Municipal and 30. So he's actively trying to sell his property. I think there's signs up there. And so we have had conversations with him about what might be acceptable in the village and what might not. So that was one. Mr. Cope's property is this property actually highlighted here in the center. He's on Galena, between 56 and Galena, and I think it's 134 acres. Then you have Prairie Glen. So Prairie Glen is obviously the community right here, the residential neighborhood. You have the whole south side of Prairie Glen between this area and the railroad tracks. That is, there's preliminary plans that were approved years ago for development, but that is, we're hopeful that that property owner will get that going again, as there's no additional lots in Prairie Glen at this time. The BEI property is represented by Batavia Enterprises. So like I said, these are the way we refer to them. Batavia Enterprises doesn't own the property, they just represent the landowner. But we've had conversations with BEI on the property between Wheeler Road, 47, and Heartland Drive. There's 176 acres, testing my memory, on that particular property and what would work in that area. So that's that conversation. Timbercrest. Timbercrest is the property east of, oh my gosh, Windsor Point. I'm like, east of Windsor Point, between 56 and Galena. There's plans there that are more residential, similar to what is in Windsor Point. And the reason they're on here, right, is so since I was elected, I have tried to talk to everyone, and everyone and anyone that will talk to me. Residential developer, commercial developer, industrial developer, property owners, brokers, whatever they may be, to see if there's a partnership that can be made, and we can bring them to Sugar Grove if it works. So Timbercrest is one of those properties. It's a residential plan, but these plans, some of these things were done so long ago. There's an annexation agreement that need to be amended because the fees are astronomical and that kind of thing. So we're trying to convey to an end user, a developer, residential developer in this case, that we're willing to work with you. We realize this needs to be adjusted, and there's some things in there like a bridge extension over over the Gilman Trail and over the creek, Blackberry Creek, that seemed like a great idea at the time when everything was booming, but now it's more of a hurdle for development. So are we going to implement that and force their hand, or are we going to say, hey, come build in Sugar Grove, we need more residents, and this is an area that could still be a beautiful community with access to Galena and also access to Windsor Point. Also, so that's Timbercrest. And Settlers Ridge, we talked about it earlier. We have Ryan Homes in Settlers Ridge, but also talked to the property owner. Settlers Ridge was supposed to be a massive project, right? I don't even know how many units, over 2,000 units. It was a very large project. So the property on the south side of Prairie in Gordon, so Settlers Ridge is Gordon and Prairie on the north side. On the south side, Prairie and Gordon, the property owner came in and said, what do you foresee on this property? And that's one of those instances where we would love residential. It kind of fits with what's going on at Settlers Ridge, but the hurdles with that property on that particular side of the road is sanitary sewer. So I've learned real quick that we look at all our farmland across Sugar Grove and think, well, why can't we put that there? Why can't we put that there? And a lot of it has to do to infrastructure or sewer capacity. And if we're going to eat up sewer capacity, how do we want to best utilize that? So those are a lot of the discussions that the village has on a regular basis. Public Works Department. They took first place in the water tasting competition in 2020. We have fabulous water, folks. Tastes good in 2020, but apparently not in 2021, because that went to Aurora. And Aurora gets this award, from what I understand, rather often. So we're just happy to be on the board, recognized as having great tasting water. We were recognized for the 27th year for Tree City USA. And Tree City USA, what does that mean? It's sponsored by the National Arbor Day Foundation. It's a program intended to recognize those communities that effectively manage their public tree resources and encourage the implementation of an urban forestry management program based on the Tree City USA standards. So communities must meet 4 of their criteria. One is maintaining a tree board or a department. So we do this through our Public Works Department. Having a community tree ordinance, spending at least $2 per capita on urban forestry, and celebrating Arbor Day, which we do each year. The Sugar Grove issues a proclamation recognizing Arbor Day. So for residents out there that live in certain areas that maybe have noticed, I can speak to one that Sugar Grove has done a phenomenal job, is on Merrill Road between Merrill and Stratford Woods. That was so overgrown on both sides of their community, and Sugar Grove has cleaned that out. It looks great. So to say we spend $2 per capita maintaining trees and forestry, they do. Between right away and what they're doing, planting new parkway trees, doing the 50-50 parkway program. We're hoping this year to do in 2022 is actually do something on Arbor Day, plant a new tree. But that will continue because the canopy that it creates, the shade it creates when we talk about town center and having those trees planted as well, and the walkability as you go under there, under that canopy, it's great. Public Works, we repainted Public Works building. So the Public Works building was built in 2002, and it's been 20 years roughly since the outside of the building was painted, and it was really bad. I have to tell you, as far as the building goes, and not having the funds and how you choose to manage those funds over the years, the building just was one of those things that we need to do. We need to do our roads, we need to do our sidewalks, we need to do, and it's kind of like everybody running your own house, you do for yourselves last. This was a year, last year, where we did have a surplus. and how do we want to allocate those dollars. And I was a huge proponent of moving forward with the painting of Public Works Department, because otherwise we would have kept kicking that can down the road forever if we didn't take that opportunity and use it for ourselves. So go down Heartland Drive. The building looks beautiful. Hopefully it'll last us many more years. We were awarded a grant from CMAP for pavement analysis. So this past year, you might have noticed the trucks driving around the village doing analysis of all our roads. Recently, there was a presentation to the village board on what the status of all of our roads are, how we fare, what roads need maintenance, what ones don't, where they fall, whether it be replacement or crack sealing, what that looks like. So I think I missed my page, but we did that, and we have a 5-year plan. So there is a 5-year plan on maintaining roads and where we're going, what needs to be done next year, and then budgeting appropriately, as a huge part of our village budget is road maintenance. I mean, Public Works, I hate to say it, Tony's in the room, but they eat up a lot of dollars over there in Public Works. But it's important, because they're keeping our roads clean, they're keeping them safe, and as people come to our community, they pick up on those things. You notice if your community is plowed better than another, or if the streets are in better shape than another community, you might want to invest your dollars here. So that was recently done for the village. Completed Bliss Road and Route 47 intersection improvement. So although it seems like so long ago that you remember pulling up to that traffic light and there was no turn signal, and maybe 3 cars could get across the intersection from Wheeler or Bliss at any given time before the next traffic light hit, and then you were backed up on the Bliss side of things, you were backed up all the way to Village Bible entrance, and Wheeler Road was backed up as well. It was a dangerous intersection. So Public Works, what did they do? They started this process back in 2010, where they submitted an application for STP funding, and that was in, like I said, December of 2010. What is STP? It's the Surface Transportation Program coordinated by Kane and Kendall County Council of Mayors. This project, not only were they able to get grant funding for, but it was multiple agencies. So you had an intergovernmental agreement between Kane County, the Village of Sugar Grove, and IDOT. And some things that were accomplished in this project. The improvements included adding left turn lanes. So now there's 2 left turn lanes, which makes a huge world of difference if that is an intersection you travel regularly. Some minor curb work, gutter work, installing pedestrian and bicycle pathways and traffic signalization modifications. This project also enhanced the village's pedestrian bike path connection program by providing a signalized pedestrian crossing at the intersection and connection of pedestrian bike paths along Wheeler, Division, Capitol, Bliss, and Illinois 47. So it was a long, tedious project. The Sugar Grove was the lead agency on this project, so they did all the, with approval from the other 2, but they did all the coordinating on this. And this is a great example of cooperation, not only with the village and other governmental agencies, but you'll see it on one other slide where we talk about it again. But this is a successful program, right? How this worked for our residents, and pooling monies together to get a project of this size done. So Public Works, again, remember I spoke earlier about grants. Here's another example. We were awarded this year, back in May, the Safe Routes to School ITEP grant, the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program grant. So you can see in the one slide we have 3 roads highlighted. It's Calkins, Grove, and West Street. So those are all sidewalks that the village anticipates replacing with this program. It's a $200,000 grant. We are in phase 1 engineering. So phase 1, and then we still have phase 2, and then construction. So we anticipate that, hopeful, fingers crossed, that all that will be replaced in the actual year of 2023, construction in 2023. Awarded the Blackberry Bridge ITEP grant. That's another grant that we were awarded through the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program. This is basically a $1 million project. It's an $800,000 grant, and there are 4 government agencies involved with this one. We have the Village of Sugar Grove, we have the Kane County Forest Protection District, We have the Sugar Grove Township, and we have a partnership with the Sugar Grove Park District. So going through the engineering phases of this bridge, that's where the 4 partnerships are aligned. So the Kane County, this year it's budgeted $50,000 from each agency to partner toward the 80-20 match. So of the $1 million, we're responsible for $200,000, and that's the $50,000 partnership with the 4. This bridge has been long discussed, probably from the developer early on in Windsor Point. But the idea, and you can see in the slide, there's a yellow line there. And it's basically trail for, right? Trail has to go in, and then kind of like the trail over off of Hannaford Farm, where it's that kind of pea gravelly stuff. That's what's going to be on the ground. And then you have that bridge, right? So what's highlighted in pink, that's the $1 million bridge that'll go in. It was a long project for the village. Previous boards connecting residents to the trail system. This is finally coming to fruition, but it is, like I said, a partnership toward construction, and then the partnership for maintenance will be between the Village of Sugar Grove, the township, and the Park District. And we still have to work out the details of what that looks like, but we don't want to pass up a $1 million opportunity to enhance our community. And so we want to move forward with this, and we'll figure out the details.
I know you said no questions, but I don't know where that is.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see the pink.
No.
All right, I'm going to walk. So right here, this is the Blackberry Creek. This is Bliss. Right? Yep, this is Bliss. And why it looks like this? This is Windsor Point. And down here is that Timbercrest property I was talking about. So okay. These are homes in Windsor Point, okay? And the bridge will connect off that backside and get over to the Gilman Trail.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So another example, I think that's the, I don't know, 3rd or 4th thing I've talked about where we're using grant funding. So that's another one. Pursuing pedestrian signal at US 30 and Municipal. So right here on Municipal and 30, we have our library, which we're in today. We have residents that live here, that their children like to bike and get an ice cream from Culver's. We have children that live on the other side that like to get to the library. And we have no safe way to get them across Route 30. I was traveling one day and I saw 2 boys on bicycles. I happened to be in the turn lane, traveling eastbound on 30, and I was trying to turn on Municipal. And I could see there were 2 cars because there's 2 turn lanes, and the traffic was still going. And as you know, it's a route where it's a lot of travel by semi. And these boys, there's no way for them to get they start to cross the street because they don't see, there's no traffic coming westbound. And they get into the middle, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, please stop, because they had a green light, and it was just such a near miss. I've seen a gentleman in a wheelchair trying to cross the street. I think if you're fire protection district or the police department with your facilities so close, you see so many people trying to cross, and it's such a dangerous intersection. So the village board has made it a priority to make that intersection safer. What does that mean? It means that we need permission from IDOT, right? That seems to be the hurdle in Sugar Grove. But we want to put not only, you'll see the pedestrian crossings, or the pedestrian bike paths stop in front of Village Hall, and then it continues on the other side, on the north side, in front of that vacant land. So not only connect the bike path, take the bike path all the way to the intersection, but get a signalized crossing so that you can safely cross Route 30. That is in the works. Engineering is expected to be completed in April, and we're pending a response from IDOT. And we're hopeful that this project will be completed in the near future. I've learned don't put a date on anything, so I won't. But we are pushing this and working this forward, and money has already been earmarked toward the project from the village. The traffic light. The traffic light at Park and 47. So there have been some significant crashes at that intersection. This is another IDOT situation. It's their road, and so we need permission from IDOT to have a traffic light installed there. So I'm talking about the intersection where the McDonald's and the Aldi is located. It's important for the growth of the village as well, because you have vacant land across from McDonald's, would be north of McDonald's, that eventually will be developed. And then we have additional property behind Aldi on Division that'll eventually be developed. And so it's important that there be a traffic light there, not only because you're going to create more traffic, but for the safety of the folks that are traveling now. So we do have a senator that has earmarked dollars to put toward this, so the money is there for funding. It's really about approval. And it's been a lot of meetings and conversations and hard work by our engineers to get this through and hopefully have IDOT use some engineering discretion in the ability to approve this light. Their fear is that they approve a light and then it creates more accidents, and they don't want that. So right now, we don't want to redo traffic study, traffic counts with Wabansi, doing a lot of remote teaching or learning, so we don't have the daytime population that we had even two years ago. So we're hopeful that we can get through and beg and get that traffic light approved for the safety and vitality of the village. We awarded our engineering contract for the Dugan Woods Water Main Replacement Project. So Dugan Woods their water main has been separated into 4 basically sections for construction to be worked on. 2 of them have been completed. We are now in section 3. Section 3 consists of the east end of Faze Lane and Whispering Oaks. That construction project will happen this year. The water main will be replaced in that area, and then the road resurfaced. So that roughly $1.3 million for that particular project. And then there will be one more phase. Fourth section, if you will, is a little more cumbersome because of the bridge that's out there in Dugan Woods. So that's going to take a little bit more planning. A lot of this is funded. This project is particularly funded through our water and sewer fund. So the money is there. It helped too with that increase of revenue because everybody was home, working from home and using more water. So it helped get this project moving farther along faster. So that is the next upcoming project. Lastly, the village board is always available to respond to emails, phone calls. I believe everybody's very responsive. I think we have a great board. I think everybody works very well together. I'm happy to work with all of them. If you ever have anything you want to share, any concerns, any comments, we gather information from our residents, from business owners, and we're happy to do whatever we can to help you. So if you have any questions after this presentation on any other topic, please reach out, call us, email us. We'll get back to you in a timely manner. And that is your 2022 State of the Village. I thank you for your time. I thank you for coming. I will stay if you have any questions for me that you would like to ask. We also have Trustee Matt Bonney here. If you have any questions for him, please feel free to ask him as well. And thank you for your time, and thank you for coming out.